All right, let's see. How are you guys doing today? My name is Amelie. You're watching the Soulestic Intelligence podcast. Today is episode number 13, and we're going to be talking about burnout. We're going to be talking about, I called it cause and consequences. So we're going to be looking at specific situations that are very common that showcase that you might be in burnout. And we're going to look at some solutions on how to overcome that. So, very excited about that today. We've got I have 5 different scenarios that we're going to go over. Some of them you might resonate with. And so, if you do, you're a woman that's resonating with this, then this is the time to pay attention, and I hope it's really helpful for you. So, we're just going to dive into it. So, the first situation that you can find yourself being in burnout. So, well, let's talk about what is burnout. So, burnout is so we have different emotional, or we have different bodies. So we have a physical body, which is, this tangible temporal form, that our skin suits that we have, that we experience in this realm that we're in. And then we have our mental body, which is our mind, our thoughts, and our logic center. And then we have our emotional bodies, which is, our feelings. And, you can kind of feel some of the key responses, how it interacts with the body. The mental interacts with the body as well. Your thoughts are really powerful and strong and I think I mentioned it. If it wasn't last week in the podcast, it was, it was in another stream that I did, but our thoughts are so powerful that you can find yourself thinking about something or actually practicing on doing something. There's studies that show that this is true, that these two things, like I think I used the example of playing basketball. If you went out and you were shooting 3-point throws, not not the free throws, but 3-point baskets. If you're practicing that for a month, or you're thinking about yourself doing it, it's about the same as actually, like, the percentage of improvement is roughly the same. I think there was like 2 or 3 points difference of what that looks like. What up, crazy? I'm from the U.S. in Oregon. So we have our physical bodies, our mental bodies, our emotional bodies, and then we also have a spiritual body, which is kind of like a soul body, for however you connect with that. So burnout is taking 3 of these things and it's putting it to exhaustion. So you are emotionally, mentally, and physically drained. You're exhausted. And this is what burnout is. So if you're saying, like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, that's your body's verbal way of saying it, or maybe you just feel it in your body. Yeah, we're going to get over procrastination too. We're going to talk about it because I actually did that this week. Okay. So, some of the key cause indicators of burnout, there's emotional and mental indicators. So, the emotional and mental indicators are chronic emotional exhaustion. So, this can be, like I was saying, I feel exhausted, I feel tired, I feel drained, I feel unmotivated, I don't want to get out of bed. Like, you're verbalizing these things, and what you're saying is that you've hit an emotional wall. And when we say that it's chronic is means that it is constant. I remember back when I was working, I was doing, I was working several hours at a 9 to 5 job, working overtime actually. And then I would come home and I would have to repair things at my home, or I would have to work on a separate business that I was working on, as well as take care of my family. And so I emotionally wasn't replenishing myself. And if you find yourself there, that's where you start to feel drained because you're just putting all your energy into these other buckets and not into yourself. And you can even have a vacation. And if after a vacation you're still not feeling rested, that is where the chronic fatigue, the chronic emotional exhaustion will come in. Cynicism and detachment, these are other key indicators that you are in an emotional or mental burnout. You become numb. Maybe you've been saying, like, I'm tired, blah, blah, blah. And then when somebody says, how are you feeling? And you say you're tired or you're exhausted, and that's the only feeling that you're expressing. That's where that numbness or that disconnection, or even the relationships that you have are just unfulfilling, and you just find yourself just not excited about it, and you just kind of go through these like really poor cycles of just kind of getting up, going to work, going to sleep, and doing this without any saying like I'm joyful or I'm excited or these things are happening. You're around your friends. I've found myself in this situation where you're just around your friends and it just you're kind of like blah. Whereas before you used to be like the life of the party, now you're just blah because you're detached from yourself. Increased irritability and frustration. Bitterness can be a huge indicator that you're unhappy and you're emotionally and mentally exhausted. Small things in your life can trigger you. So, maybe it's having to come home to dirty dishes, knowing that your partner has been at home all day, watching the kid or something like that. But you come home and you're like, oh my gosh, like at least have that done so dinner could be ready. Or maybe dinner's not ready and you're like, I just don't like this. Reduced creativity and focus. So, struggling to think clearly, make decisions, and problem solve effectively. I talk about the disconnect of the central nervous system. So, your central nervous system is kind of this information station of like where you're at. And there's two different styles of your central nervous system. One is this survival mechanism of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And then the other part of it is rest and digest. Now, in the survival mechanism of your central nervous system, if that one is completely going off at all times, it's chronic, not you're not entering the rest and digest, then your body is going to start to kind of be overwhelmed, and that's where exhaustion will come in. It reduces the creativity and focus. So you have a hard time when you're in that fight, flight, fawn, or freeze portion of your nervous system of being able to kind of sit back and look at a situation and say, oh, I see what's going on here. It's like your mind shuts off. Even your stomach will shut off, like your digestive system. I mean, not just your stomach, like just takes a hike or whatever, but your digestive system shuts down when you're in that survival mechanism because your body is working to reserve the energy that it has to survive and stay alive. So it's basically like a low power battery setting, to kind of put it simply. Whereas in rest and digest, now you're able to kind of shut down all of these things that are kind of plaguing you, and you can look at situations with clarity and stillness and figure out what the best solution is for you. And so when you're in that rest and digest, you can make better decisions for you and yourself. And then a final emotional and mental indicator of you're in burnout is feeling inadequate or unaccomplished. I'll tell you a story. It's kind of a sad one, but so my Minecraft mug here. So in 2016, I got laid off for a week, and I kind of panicked that if I didn't have a bachelor's degree, that I couldn't get a job in the field that I was in, and I really enjoyed it. And so I panicked, and I was like, well, I'm going to go to school. So I didn't lose my job. They just laid me off for like maybe 2 weeks. It wasn't even 2 weeks. They were like, we want you back. Come back. So I went back, and I was like, well, I'm going to go back to school. So I went back to school to get my to get my bachelor's degree in business, and I was working full time, and I was going to school full time. So already I'm like, that's a lot of work. Plus, I was saving up to buy a house, and all the American dream stuff that you can imagine. I was like going through that. So when it took me a couple years, I graduated in 2018, and I distinctly remember. So it's graduation time, so it's May 2018, and I'm also so not only am I graduating with my degree, I'm also closing on my house. Like it happened within a week was graduation and closing. And I remember standing to walk down to get my diploma, and I had this like overwhelming feeling of not being accomplished, of not being happy with the circumstances, because I had spent so much time and I had developed so much anxiety, and I had stayed in so much mental and emotional and physical exhaustion from working and getting my degree, that when I finally went to go walk, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't I put so much effort into this. Why don't I feel proud or accomplished or like satisfied with the decisions I've made? There was actually a little bit of disappointment that I missed out on, my son's younger years because I was working and going to school and trying to like provide this future for him, when I kind of just missed out on some of them, some of his younger years that you just don't get back. And, it was like working 70 hours a week, basically. So I say that to really proclaim that if you're feeling inadequate or unaccomplished or even dissatisfied, or like, why am I doing that? Like, what's the point of this? You're likely experiencing burnout on some level or another. Okay. So now that we've looked at some of the mental and emotional responses or indicators, let's look at some of the physical indicators. So, like I said, we have this beautiful nervous system, and it's like our regulation system to help us to really deepen in and recognize where we're at. So, hopefully, if you're in a survival, like I remember years and years ago, I had a talk therapist, and I was trying to like resolve some serious issues. My dad had just died. There was a lot of things that I needed to work out as far as grieving. And I remember going to her, and I was like, I feel like I'm always in survival mode. And so if you ever say that, or if you ever think that, or if you ever think like I always have to fight to get something, or I always have to I'm always giving in, and I never get what I actually want. I have to just kind of give in to what the other person wants from me. Or, let's see, freeze. I always, every time something challenges me, I just I don't even know what to say. Or, the fight, flight. Or if something happens, immediately I just want to run away. I just want to run away, hide, stay in my bedroom, never leave my house, and or like seek somebody that is going to engage with me. So if you're experiencing that, those are all physical symptoms or physical indicators that your your nervous system is like, we're in survival mode. We can't make decisions. Like any decisions that we make, it's beyond us because we don't have reason. We're really like, we've shut down. We're in shutdown mode. We're in low power battery mode. And so here's some of the physical indicators. So chronic fatigue or insomnia. So feeling exhausted even after you've slept. So you wake up and you're tired, or struggling to fall asleep even or even stay asleep. If you're waking up in the middle of the night, if you're waking up in the middle of the night, and I am like not even calling you out because I do this all the time. I wake up, I have like certain times that I'll wake up. Usually that's a cortisol response of your body is like gives you cortisol or an adrenaline boost during the day because it doesn't have enough of the chemicals that it needs to get through the night. So your body is not in that rest and digest mode if you're waking up in the middle of the night chronically. So if it's all the time and that's always happening, then that is that chronic fatigue or insomnia feeling. And or struggling to fall asleep, like especially, I mean, I think it's even more prevalent now since we have so many devices. Like we have devices, we look at our devices at night, or maybe we have to listen to something at night, or whatever we're attuned to. But we struggle to fall asleep, so maybe we've developed some ways to fall asleep. I remember before I went to school, I was able to go to sleep. I went to sleep every night at 8 o'clock at night. I just had to, and then I woke up at 5. It was just, those were my times that I liked to go to sleep and wake up. And after I had gone to school, that whole cycle was disrupted. It just completely tore up any normal behavior that I had. So, not to blame school, I'm glad that I got my degree, but I didn't recognize how much of an impact it had. I thought after school was over, after, going to college was over, that I would be able to go back to whatever I was before, and it just wasn't the case. Now I had all these new kind of traumas in my body that I had to work through. I have to work through, and I still, to a degree, have to work through them. Now, after I graduated, I didn't get any rest. I was unable to get back to that rest and digest, that normal sleep schedule, and it took until 2022 by the time I actually felt relaxed and able to finally fall back into this rest and digest phase. Now, do I still fight with that? Yes, there's still some things that I need to kind of work on and tweak. We all have things that we're working on and tweaking, but this is very important to notice about yourself. So if you're experiencing these physical indicators, chances are you might have burnout, and it might be something for you to look into. Frequent headaches or body aches. So now we're looking at these physical indicators. So constant headaches or any stress or any migraines or tension or bodily pain kind of key into where you're experiencing those things. So for those of you that may know about chakral healing or about anything about our energy centers in our bodies, I am a firm believer in this, that there's these parts in our bodies that will tell us a story about what we're going through. So it can be an emotional, it'll be like situated in a shoulder, or it could be anywhere really. I know that tweaked my ankle, and I I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? I don't know what happened or why it happened, but it's kind of been sitting there for a while. And it was because I was procrastinating. I didn't know that we brought up procrastination earlier, but I was procrastinating some things, and then my body's like, I need you to get up and do these things, and I hadn't. So the area on your body will tell you something. So just so you know, your heart is related to your hands, so your arms, your fingers, your fingies, and your heart area. Those are all like, it's all related to each other. And then for your root, it's your root, and then all down, all the way down to your toes. So anywhere on that, that's your root. And there's the different sides, so there's like different energies on different sides. So the left side is more masculine of an energy, whereas the right side is more of a feminine energy. And you can really tune into, okay, I'm feeling a pain, let's say in my right shoulder, and you can start to kind of go through. There's a lot of there's a lot of information out there for you to kind of key into, but these are ways that your body is speaking to you. And if you want to kind of deepen into what is my body saying physically, you can look that up. There's a lot of good information. I've done quite a bit of research on it, and it's very intriguing. So if you guys want to deepen into that, I encourage you to do that. Okay, we talked about the rest and digest, and we talked about digestive issues, and that is our next physical indicator, is having digestive issues. So stress related gut imbalance, bloating, loss of appetite, these are all things. Maybe your body isn't processing the food right, because when we're in that survival mode and we're in that chronically, our bodies are not resting and digesting. And so when we eat something, it's not, the digestive system is there to pull out the minerals and the water that it needs to feed the rest of your body. And if it's shut down, what's going to happen? You're going to have digestive issues. So when we're looking at indicators, that is an indicator that you can kind of key into of, oh, I have digestive issues. Let's figure it out. Is it related to stress? What kind of things am I going through right now? Let me make a list. How honest can I be? And then finally, a weakened immune system is another way. It's another key physical indicator. A weakened immune system, if you're having digestive issues, could be coming from your body's inability to get the bioavailable vitamins that it needs. And so when it doesn't have, let's say, vitamin C or vitamin D, then your body is going, your immune system is going to be a little bit more compromised, because it doesn't have those things that it needs to be at a stasis and regulate itself. So those are some of the physical indicators. And then behavioral indicators, we're just going to kind of top this off on the key indicators of what could be, what burnout symptoms might look like. So withdrawal from social connections. This is avoiding people or feeling emotionally unavailable. So even if you are around people, you're unable to really connect with them maybe before you were able to, and now you're just not interested in it. It's too much. It's too much energy for you to connect with them, and even thinking about connecting with people or going into a social situation is exhausting to you. You're like, I just don't even want to be around them. They're going to drain me, and I just don't have that energy to put out and connect with anybody right now. It doesn't fulfill you. Other behavioral indicators, we were talking about procrastination. So procrastination and avoidance. So if you start projects and you're unable to finish them, if you agree to do something and then you pull out, if you're experiencing a lack of motivation to even do the things that you want to do. So let's say you write a list of all these goals that you have, and you're just like, I'm not even going to attempt to do any of those things. That is a behavioral indicator that there is something is not right, because as a healthy person, as somebody who's pursuing their dreams, as somebody who is excited about their future, procrastination. So let's really say this, like, procrastination isn't about not doing something, because you can not do something, and maybe you have a list of, like, let's say you have a list of 10 things and you did 8 of them, and you didn't do there's 2 of those things on that list that you didn't do. That's a fairly healthy amount of follow through, I would say. That's not what I would consider procrastination or avoidance. Procrastination is like knowing that you are able to do something, and you just don't even want to get out of bed to do it. So I had procrastinated for years. I'd procrastinated getting my passport. And I love to travel. It's crazy ridiculous that I've never done it. Like, how many times have I had the opportunity to do it? Like, hundreds and hundreds of times. But there was a certain level of procrastination and avoidance for me for it, even though it's something that I had wanted to do and looked forward to doing at a certain point. So it was, there were still things, even as I went to go do my application, there were still things that popped up that were pretty viable excuses of, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it today. One was, I have to go, if I'm going to go and I have the appointments, I scheduled the appointments. It took me 3 weeks to get it. And I'm like, well, I can always reschedule, which I've done before, and or not go. But then the other thing is, I was also getting my son's passport, and I needed his father's signature. I'm like, I don't know how that's going to work out. Like, am I going to be able to go get him? And so for me, the motivation to get my passport was stronger than my desire to avoid getting it because of these extra hurdles and humps to get through. Now, even when I was there there were other things that happened, and they're like, oh, there may be things, whatever. I got the slow boat ones, but there may be other things that happen, like my son's birth certificate was a little like chopped up, and so they're like, I don't know if they'll accept it, so they may accept it, they may not accept it, but we'll deal with that on the other end. That just means I need to get a good birth certificate for him. But like, things like that popped up, and it was like, oh my gosh, even though I've procrastinated this, and now that I'm doing the action, now there's like even more hurdles here of what I have to jump through in order to get to it. So, but for the longest time, I was unable to complete this really simple task of just getting the thing done. So reliance on coping mechanism is another behavioral indicator. So let's say that, like, you have to have coffee, or if you're going to relax at the end of the day, you need to have, your glass of wine or alcohol, or maybe you need sugar, or some people play those games on their phones, and that's their escape. Like, these are all coping mechanisms that may indicate that you need escape in order to, like, kind of just deal with life. So it could be, energy drinks, or whatever the thing is. Like, if there's a coping mechanism that you are relying on in order to get through life, you might want to look at that. So That doesn't necessarily mean that those things are bad things, but just look at how much you use it and is it an escape? Okay. The next one is neglecting self care. And this one is a huge one, especially if you lean a little bit more empath. You might put other people's needs above yourself. And so I find that if you are leaning a little bit more towards being an empath and putting others ahead of yourself to a negative, dark empath degree, that you might find yourself easily jumping into this whole scheme of burnout. And so this could look like skipping meals, skipping workouts, skipping hobbies, skipping personal time, skipping vacations, skipping even hygienic activities for yourself, skipping. I love making my bed every day, and so one of my indicators might be I just leave it messy and it looks terrible, or my room looks like a disaster. Those are my indicators of like I'm neglecting my own self-care because I like to have things in order. I like to know where things are, and it makes my mental happiness a lot easier when all those things are kind of put together. I want to, before we get into some of the common scenarios of people can, how women can identify if they're in these situations, I want to talk about what happens when like these burnout symptoms are left unchecked. And I I say this with the utmost love because I wish that I could hear somebody tell me that I was in burnout. I didn't even know what the word was when I was in it. So I wish that there was somebody that would have been able to verbally and somehow mentally penetrate into my mind that, my dear, you're experiencing burnout. If you keep doing this, you're going to have negative effects. I think the closest person that ever got to that was my OB, and he he kind of said that because I was a little worried about my hormones. I thought my hormones are, I'm 30 years old. They're 30, 31 years old. My hormones are out of balance. No, they weren't. He was like, they're not, you're fine. You need to check your emotions. I wish I could have heard him a little bit more when he said that, but sometimes we have to kind of go through these punches in life in order to get it. So the what happens is you can experience emotional collapse. Emotional collapse comes from chronic stress, and it could be severe depression, it could be emotional numbness, it could be breaking down. So if you're experiencing any of those, you know if you're there, please reach out. If you want to reach out to me, if you want to reach out to somebody else, if you want to find a therapist, like it doesn't matter. Please reach out to somebody and let them know like, hey, I am constantly stressed. I see it all the time, and I see these women reaching out, and there's there's so many women that are in this, and we'll talk about some of the reasons why, but there's so many women that experience this because of this. I was talking with a friend about this societal shift of the gender responsibilities, and it's prevalent in the Western nations because of the amount of freedom and liberties that we've attained. And I also think that there's this spiritual universal shift in energy as well that also is contributing to this phenomenon that we're experiencing. So if you're experiencing severe depression, if you're experiencing severe emotional numbness, or if you're experiencing breakdowns, like please reach out to somebody. I know that there's mental health lines that you can call, like anybody that you can talk to and talk to them about it. It could even be your friend. There's tons of people out in the world right now too that do coaching, and find somebody that you resonate with, that is going you're going to be able to connect with, that somebody that is honest about where they're at in their life, and that if they've experienced this. So severe anxiety and or panic attacks, these are also like, if burnout isn't getting, if it's left unchecked, it can lead into this severe anxiety or panic attacks. I remember I had two instances as I was like going through school or after school. I think it was after, maybe it was during and after, that I had these panic attacks at work. And I thought I was like having a heart attack or something. It was very scary. I told my boss, I was like, please bring me to urgent care. I need to go get checked out. Went and got checked out. Like everything was fine. And they were like, well, you're just having a panic attack. So chronic stress will do that to your body. You'll start to, it puts your body into that fight or flight, and it long term left unchecked. So long term left unchecked is me going through school and not checking in with how much impact the amount of work that I was doing had on my body. So this will lead to the long-term anxiety. So you'll start to get anxiety. Part of the anxiety came from what's due, you know, all of my courses, like it was all online. So I was like, okay, what is due? What isn't due? And so it was constantly checking in and like, oh my gosh, is something due today? And like constantly thinking about that. Plus being in an environment where my job was very mentally exhausting. And it's really unfortunate because, and I will say this, if you are working in an office in front of a computer and your spouse or your partner or whomever is saying like, oh, you don't experience exhaustion because it's not physical exhaustion of like me being in a kitchen or me working on a job site, a construction site. If you're working behind a computer, your job is easy and you don't experience exhaustion. Fuck that. That's wrong. And I do not like that. Being in a heavily mental environment will cause you exhaustion, and it feels the same as if you were working on a job site or in a kitchen or whatever the physical activity is for the same amount of time. Because what did I say when we started this? If your goal is to shoot better 3-point throws, and if the studies are showing that the difference between somebody doing the physical action of shooting, practicing 3 points, and the thoughtful act of imagining themselves making those 3 points is the same, that your body, your mind has no idea that there is a differentiation between the two of those things. That's why I call BS. And yeah, the anxiety is going to be there regardless if you are thinking it or if you're actually doing the thing. So the exhaustion is going to feel the same to the body. It doesn't know any different. It's just like exhausted. Check. Okay. That's where we're at. Okay. What else happens? Autoimmune disorders and chronic illness can happen as well. So burnout is causing some weakness to that immune system, and part of the reason why, from a physiological perspective, like your physical body, is because it's not in rest and digest, and it needs to be there in order for your body to pull and deliver the vitamins and minerals and the water that it needs from the digestive system into the rest of the body. We learn this in anatomy. If you are unfamiliar with the anatomy and how everything works, you can watch a lot of stuff on it. But I'm just giving you like the bare basics lesson here of your body is wanting to, it needs to be in rest and digest. It needs to be in that digest cycle so that it is pulling those minerals. Otherwise, you're going to have that weakened immune system. So this can trigger inflammation systems in your system. So it could be fibromyalgia, it could be thyroid disorders, it could be a whole host of things. But the chronic illness part of it is going to be very real. Adrenal fatigue is another stress response that will get burned out. So if your body is constantly pumping out adrenaline, like I said, if you're waking up in the middle of the night because you have insomnia or you're having restless nights, and your body is so entwined into stress that it can't rest, and give you that full 8 hours of sleep that our bodies need, 7 to 9, depends. Sometimes I think the studies show that women need a little bit more sleep, more than 8 hours. So if you're able to do that, that's great. But if you're finding yourself waking up in the middle of the night and unable to go back to sleep, your body is shooting cortisol or adrenaline into your body because it's not getting the chemicals that it needs. And it's like, oh my gosh, let's give her a shot of this, or give him a shot of that. And so that can lead to adrenal fatigue. Can cause hormonal imbalance, extreme exhaustion, or even brain fog. So like I said, it's going to be harder the deeper that you get into burnout, the deeper you get into these symptoms that I'm discussing, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to get out of it. It's going to take a lot more than just, a week's vacation in Fiji. It's going to take a little bit more work, a little bit more tenderness to your system, and a lot more love to your system as well. Like you loving yourself. This one, I feel so strongly because I see so many women. I see so many women go through this. They lose their passion and their identity. And I resonate so much with this. They lose their passion. They lose that libido. That libido is shot. If they're overworking and their partner isn't like supporting them, that's going to kill the libido immediately. You're going to be the Sahara Desert. I don't care who you are. Like, women are not designed to take care of all that stuff. We can, but not on a long-term chronic situation. Like, we need to have a partnership, not a one-sided, like, I'm the maid and whatever, and I do it all. Long-term burnout leads to difficulty in feeling joy and or purpose. So that's where the passion comes in. If I was to describe it, it's like it literally feels like your sacral area, your womb area is just shut down. And if you're really in tune to your body, you can feel where that tightness, that unavailability in that creative area of your body, because that's where the womb is, where life is grown. And so it's not just a physical aspect. This is an energetic, emotional aspect that happens in that area as well. So if you feel a tightness in that area, or you're experiencing other symptoms, it could be constant UTIs, it could be, physical pain, cramps, anything like that, in that sacral area, you're going to likely be able to identify with a loss of passion, a loss of purpose, and a loss of joy. And it messes with your identity. So as a woman, especially, like, a big part of us wants to be this like creative beauty, and that's where all that energy is coming. And like it comes from other places, but that's like one of the places that helps us to identify with ourselves. And if we're out of balance with that energy that's just like stored in there, maybe it just feels like it's stuck, you can have an identity crisis, or you can have a deep, hurtful emotional detachment from yourself, which I think is even sadder. Women and anyone who really has like high feminine energy, because men can experience this as well, but women in particular, like your feelings is what gives you your beauty. Like it's one of the pieces of this whole like beauty puzzle. It's not just physical looks, it's how you carry yourself. Now, if you're stuck in that sacral area and you're not able to express yourself with a passion and like exploring all your beautiful hobbies, or even just having joy and laughing and being like your whole self, that that can feel really really hurtful. It can feel almost like you're dying. And I see so many posts. I follow several different groups, and I see so many posts where the wife is like, you know, I'm just no longer attracted to my husband. I do all the things and he like does the bare minimum. So you've got this bare minimum guy, and now like I don't even know, like I can't even do it anymore. Like you've come to the end. Like I need help on how to get out of this. Sweetie, you're in burnout and there are ways out of it, but you are in burnout, and the way to get out of it is to at least be one, become aware of it, and then two, to start taking some action. So one of the last things that we talk about, if burnout is left unchecked, is the relationship breakdown. So now here we are, we're at the end of our rope, and you know, we married somebody, we thought we loved them, and now we're finding that the balance of responsibility isn't there. Now, me as a woman who just takes charge of things is disconnected from myself. Now it's going to strain my relationships with my husband or my partner or my children or my friends. You start to see all these connection, intimacy issues, even family, like you don't see your family, or people, or maybe even your partners, like you don't talk to them, just talk to me, like that isolation. You'll start to see this withdrawal from the normal activities that you used to love. And our goal is to not get there. We don't want this unchecked. We want to deal with the burnout, and we want to deal with it the earlier the better, because the earlier that you can deal with it, the less harm it's going to do, because we're talking about emotional and mental, and that already is really strong, but then you add in that physical, like your whole body is basically on standstill, and if it's not moving the energy, it's going to start to break down somewhere. Okay. I think before we talk about techniques to reduce or eliminate these things, I want to talk about the areas of, or the most common types of women that will be experiencing this. So, one is the overworked professional or the career driven woman. So, this is a high achieving woman. She's in leadership or in a demanding corporate role, and she has a team that she manages. There's deadlines, there's expectations. And so, what her struggle is going to be is having the long hours, constant pressure, which will lead to a certain level of emotional exhaustion. She's not going to have time to really take care of herself. Now, the reason women like this get into these situations is they feel like they have to prove themselves in perhaps a male dominated space. So she was promoted and now she's got this team that she manages, but let's say it is like a really heavily male dominated role, especially like in a C suite. She can find herself in this position. And because of these long hours and because of like having to work with her team and really connect with them and figure out how to make that work, she experiences very little time for herself to rejuvenate or relax or find things that give her personal joy. And this isn't all of the women. This just can happen, especially if you're trying to prove yourself instead of just knowing that you are an incredible, capable woman. Even if you want to be in a career, if you don't want to be in that career, like the woman I'm talking about does want to be in that situation, and so she is best served by knowing that she is in a spot that she is capable of doing. And let's see, what she needs is a detox from stress and self worth beyond productivity. So instead of, like I said, instead of thinking that she has to prove herself to the male dominated career that she's found herself in, she is best served by knowing that she got there on her good merit, that she deserves it, and that she is worth every much a bit as anybody else that has put themselves into that situation. She also needs to do some sacred self care rituals to restore her energy and her intuition. So, things could be like taking naps on her day off, like going and doing spa treatments. It can be some women really thrive doing this, like their energy is this. Some women do well by they do their meal planning for the week so that they have all their food is like laid out for them. And these help to kind of restore as like a part of her. So it's like maybe she does, like I love to make hard boiled eggs. So I make hard boiled eggs for my whole work week so that it is ready for me to pull. And I have my breakfast, so I'm not skipping my meals. I have a good breakfast of protein, and then I'll add a fruit or a vegetable into it. And, you know, if I get hungry, I have like a snack or something until lunchtime. And so I have my coffee and my eggs, and so I plan that throughout the whole week. And then, you know, for lunches, it's like sometimes it's the dinner from the night before, but I'm thoughtfully planning out what I'm going to consume because I want to take care of my body. And these are self care, this is what I consider self care rituals. 2 to 3 times a week, I'm taking a Epsom salt bath where I can just shut my mind down and really just kind of sink in and relax into that. I found a really great one that has arnica in it, which is kind of a muscle relaxant. And so I add that into my bath. I put some essential oils in there. Personally, I like frankincense and I like bergamot, but you can find ones that you like. Some people like lavender. I have used a lot of lavender in my day, and so I typically like to kind of move into these really resiny, woody smells. But rosemary is another one that is a stress reliever. So do do a self skin check to make sure that you're not going to have any reactions to those things. But those are little things that I do. I put dead sea salt in there. Sometimes I'll throw in a little bit of baking soda. It just really depends on what kind of self care ritual I want to do. But I find my baths are my sacred times that I can just sit and relax and shut down my mind, and just kind of let the water wash away any stress that I have. So finding these sacred self-care rituals will help you to restore your energy. So you want to continuously do this. You don't want to like work, never vacation. And then, 2 years later, you take that big vacation. Like, I don't recommend that. We're so American in doing that. We need to be taking, we need to be taking our vacations as we can accumulate them. I understand that if you want to store up some time, you can do that, but please take your vacation time that you've earned and try not to save it up. I think the Europeans do a really good job of this where like they'll work a little bit in the morning and then take a couple hours. What's it called? There's a beautiful term for it. But they'll take a 2 hour break and then they'll go back and work a little bit and then, have their family time. They've got this like really beautiful structured way of working. And that's not necessarily the case in America or in a westernized country. So think about different ways that you can start to put these different self-care rituals into your week. Oh, thanks, Jessica. Good to see you. A siesta. Yes, thank you. I was like, it starts with an S. I can't think of the word right now. And then the next one is a balance between ambition and feminine flow. So ambition is great. It's a very masculine energy is ambition because we're thinking about our vision, our future. We're setting goals, we're accomplishing them, we're taking action to meet those goals. There's this drive to do it, and that's a very masculine, penetrative energy, and that's great. However, if you're going to be that masculine and you're a woman, we also want to find a way to balance this feminine energy. And there's different ways that you can do that, but tapping into your feminine energy could be like going and taking a painting, like going to one of those painting classes and making something beautiful and creative for your workspace or for your home, or maybe as a gift for somebody. But the action of doing the work of painting a picture or drawing or putting together, let's say, like a floral vase, like putting those things together, decorating, like taking a little bit of time each week to like decorate your space and clean and organize your space so that it feels beautiful and that you're connecting with that creative energy. We're talking about that sacral part of our body is where that feminine energy is, and we want to tap into that. That's going to help you to feel a lot more at ease. I talked earlier about I think it was like bitterness, where like you kind of snap or you break down or you're emotionally reactive in situations. And if you find yourself like experiencing bitterness, this is a nice key indicator that, hey, you might be experiencing burnout right now. I found that the best way to combat those things is to do something creative. Back in I think it was like 2018, I had just bought my house and it was kind of a lull in the market. So it was like going to be laid off for a week and then work for a week and laid off for a week. And I was like, well, I'm going to have all this time. And so my friend was like, hey, do you want to start this craft business? And a lot of people have been on Facebook and they've probably come across my profile page. It's still up there. But it was me sitting in front of a camera and making these beautiful art pieces. And it was my feminine flow, like expressing itself. And it felt so good. And it actually changed my demeanor so much at work. They were like, I don't know what you're doing, but keep it up. Everyone is noticing that your energy has gone from being really negative to being a lot more positive. And it was because I was sitting in front of the camera having these beautiful conversations with my friends and at least my audience, and just connecting with them, and just and then using my hands to create beautiful things. So I'm sitting there and I'm just chatting, kind of like I'm chatting right now because I just love to talk. Um, it's part of my expression, and making these beautiful art pieces and sharing it with the people, and they loved watching it. Some people bought the things and some people didn't, but for me, it was just that feminine flow of action, feminine flow of creativity, not action, but creativity. So tapping into that is a key to helping you balance those two energies. So if you find yourself in a job that is C-suite, or maybe it's a male dominated field, couple that strong male energy that you have to express at work with something that is creative. You don't have to be live streaming like I was, but find something that makes you feel feminine. Could be journaling, it could be going and singing, it could be I do ballroom dancing right now as an expression of my feminine flow. It could be, I did name off a bunch of things, but it could be baking, it could be cooking something, or it could be volunteering. Anything that is going to express your creativity and help you connect with the community is going to be a key to that. There's lots of things that you can do. Okay, this next one is one that is a woman that I see quite a bit, is the working mom who does it all. Now, the working mom who does it all is she's juggling full-time job, managing the household, the kids, the family needs, and feeling like she has no time for herself. So her struggle is constant exhaustion from being everything for everyone and nothing for herself. So she's everything for everyone else, but she's not sitting and taking care of herself. She is likely going to experience burnout on some degree. Guilt and emotional depletion. She feels like she's failing in her work, or she's feeling like she's failing in her motherhood, or maybe she's failing in her relationship. She's not being supported in some way, but she feels like she has to support everybody else. Like when I say that the empath is more susceptible to burnout than like a narcissist person with high degrees of narcissist traits, then like this is one of the reasons why I think that a lot of women find themselves in this position, especially if she's got multiple kids, she's got the demanding job, and she still has to like take the kids to, practice or whatever, and she's like trying to manage it all. It will lead you into exhaustion. There's so much work that goes into raising a family, and even work in working, that it can deplete you really quickly. So you'll start to have like guilt. Oh, I didn't do this for my kids. Or if I don't do this for my kids, then whatever the scary scenario she's built in, or story she's built in her mind, or if I don't do this for work, then I might lose my job, or whatever the scary scenario is for her, like with her work. So her guilt is kind of leading her into these exhausted feelings. And then because of like all of the things that she has to do during the day, there's no space to recharge or replenish. And this can help lead to a lot of resentment and disconnection from herself, and then consequently to the relationships that she has in her family or in her life, her social circles. Even her employees might not resonate with her because she's so disconnected from herself. They're like, ah. Now, why I say that is, like, if you're going to be in a leadership position and you're experiencing these things, your employees are going to feel it just as much. And I did not know this until a couple years ago. My So when I started working in procurement, my manager, she was really good at leading. She had a really satisfying home life. She was really ambitious. So she was able to dedicate, her kids were a little bit older, but her husband and her like were a great team. And so she was really, even though like personality wise, she kind of butted heads with a lot of people at work, she was so good at leading the team that she's at a high position still in the company that she's been with for I think over 35 years now. That when I worked under her, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really easy. I can just go to her. I can ask her questions. She gives me like direct answers. Like I feel really connected to her. Versus when she got promoted and then my next boss got promoted and then I in turn got promoted, it shifted the energy. Now she was all stressed out because she didn't know how to lead a team. She thought she just sat there and whatever. But she would come into the office and she would kind of breathe a good morning, go into her office, and throughout the day, all I could hear were heavy sighs from her. And she wouldn't come out until the end of the day. And if she left before I did, which was rare, she would say, goodbye, and just not be excited. She didn't have the joy and the passion that you would expect from having in a manager or a leader or somebody that is overlooking you. So her energy affected the whole department and maybe other departments, but her energy affected other departments. So as a mom, you're leading the children. What do you think as a mom if you're exhausted and you're feeling guilty and then you're like doing all this stuff for other people? What do you think that you're giving to your children who are your responsibility in the household? Like what are you giving your children? You're giving them a mom who is not charged. You're giving them a mom who is resentful, who's disconnected from herself, and you're teaching them that this is okay. And that's just kind of a sad situation. Like we want to, I'm sure like her guilt and the things that she desires for her kids, like she wants to have good for her kids. She wants them to be the best. That's why she's providing all this stuff for them. But until she starts to take care of herself and show them like, hey, I'm just as much of value as you are, and recharging and replenishing ourselves is just as important, then she's going to continue down this really struggle, this really interesting guilt waterfall of disconnection. So what she needs is some feminine replenishment. She needs to learn to receive instead of constantly giving. And I find that, as an empath, that our desire to give is very strong because we feel so connected to other people. Our empathy levels are really, really high. But learning to receive is so important. It's just as important as giving. So learning to receive and to be able to take a step back and ask for help and say, look, I need you to give me this because I'm drained. I don't feel good. I don't want to be the snappy, bitchy mother. I want to be connected and happy and celebrating with everybody. The other thing is having the energetic boundary. And I didn't learn about energetic boundaries until a couple years ago. But energetic boundaries are just as important as like verbally saying boundaries. But an energetic boundary setting is to avoid that emotional depletion. Like, look, I want to do these things for you, but there's things that I'm going to have to give up that in order for me to be emotionally available to you. And our kids want us to be emotionally available. Let's face it, they want that. They want to feel close to their mothers. They want to feel close to their fathers. And in order to feel that full nurturing feeling from their mothers, she does need to protect herself emotionally, energetically. And then she also needs sacred time for her soul's needs. So life isn't just family and work. Like, you've also got to sit there and replenish yourself. And we talked a little bit about some of the feminine flow that we can tap in. The same thing is applied here. As a working mom who's doing it all, there's things that you're just going to have to say, I can't, I have to take this off of my plate. I can't do this, or what can you take that will lessen my load so that I can take time for myself, so that I can have my bath time, so that I can have my, go and paint a picture time, or so that I can go and sit and read in a coffee shop for an hour or whatever, or a library, whatever is going to bring her the replenishment and fulfillment of just kind of pulling yourself away and really analyzing. So I found that if you are doing this and you've been in such high anxiety and you've been in such high like go mode, like the stress is just your motivator. I find that when you start to do these activities of the feminine flow that I'm talking about, that the feelings of anxiety will start to rush over you. And that is the time for you to sit and say, okay, anxiety, you're a feeling. Let's really define you and work through it. And I did the emotion exercise. I'm going to feel you, and I'm going to see if I can identify why you're coming up, what is the reason this anxiety is here, and then I'm going to release it. So doing this technique of releasing your emotional energy, anxiety, sadness, resentment, whatever the bitterness, whatever the feeling is, like if you're taking time, let's say that you go and have a coffee and you're going to read this book that you've been wanting to read, and that is your me time. That is your time where you're rejuvenating yourself, and you start to feel this anxiety of I shouldn't be here. I should be doing XYZ, whatever it is. That is the time that you will take to, okay, I'm just going to pause everything right now, and I'm going to feel this feeling, and I'm going to let it go. I'm going to rewrite the story that I don't have to do it all and I can't do it all. And she starts working on those things. The next one is the entrepreneur or maybe a creative leader. So she's she's a business owner, doing some creative work, working endless hours to grow her passion, but is losing touch with her own energy. She is feeling drained from overgiving and serving others without recharging. So, we can see some of the similarities between our career-driven woman or even our do-it-all mother, with the entrepreneur, the woman that owns her own business. She's not working necessarily for others. She's working for herself. We can kind of identify and outline that she's going to have some of the same things if her success is related to how much energy she's got to put into it. We're still getting into that piece of productivity equaling your self-worth. Like, I have to produce this much so that I can show myself I'm worth that much. And we don't want to do that. You're worth it just as you are, and everything is going to work out in the best interest for you, whatever the situation is. So she's struggling with visibility fear. So maybe she doesn't want to be seen, or maybe she wants to be seen. She's going to deal with some self-worth. And we just talked about that. Self-worth being tied to productivity is a common way to get burnt out, and or just creative burnout. So wanting to create so much and then kind of hitting this wall of, I don't even know what to create anymore. And then finally, this is an interesting one. I think I'm probably going to be talking a little bit more deeper into imposter syndrome, but carrying imposter syndrome and emotional overwhelm is another piece that the entrepreneur, the self-made business woman is going to experience, or even men will experience these things, but we're focusing on women today. and the emotional overwhelm of that. So many people experience this. And I was kind of looking in to see like what celebrities and what CEOs were experiencing this imposter syndrome. I'll go a little bit deeper into it in next week's topic because I wanted to talk about that as its own thing. But there are so many celebrities and there's so many CEOs that have experienced the imposter syndrome and the overwhelm of presenting themselves. And you'd be shocked at the names that have like openly experienced these things and were open about it. So what she needs is some energy healing to clean up her emotional blocks and realign herself in her purpose. So sometimes you need to kind of clean that energy up, to clear it out and to like give it back to God. Like we don't want those things sitting in our system. We want to move those things through anytime that you're feeling a block anywhere. Even if it's, let's say, like, here's physically how like a throat block might show up is you're constantly like clearing your throat or feeling that like there's something stuck in there. That could be an indicator that you have an issue with speaking your truth or speaking out things that you want to say. So energy healing or energy clearing is like working on how can I move that through. And you know, we talked about headaches as well. Um, these are all these are all energies that are just kind of being stored in our bodies, and it's telling us like we need to clear it out and realign with who we are. We want to align. So the next one is a sacred support system. So she wants to restore her energy flow. So however that support system is going to look like to her, maybe she's got friends, maybe she has a mentor that she can discuss things with. Having a mentor is like really awesome. I've had mentors in huge key areas of my life, and they are so vital. I mean, the CEOs have them, celebrities have them, like they have them for a reason. Like they're helping to align and tune them into where their energy needs to be focused. Because sometimes we get so caught up in our own situation, especially if we're experiencing burnout, we're not going to see, we're basically blinding ourselves. Like the more burnout we have, the more blind we are to the situations that are kind of coming up to us. So it's finding that support system that is going to hold you and carry you through some of the, like, let's face it, we're going to experience some sort of roadblock at some point in time in our situation. I'm sure that you're going through a roadblock right now. So finding a support system that is going to help you restore and get you refocused and back on track is important. And then finally, feminine embodiment to tap and ease into your intuitive power. So this is like if you're an entrepreneur or you're a creative leader in whatever area you're in, you're really tapping into that creative side of yourself. And so finding ways to tap into that embodiment and to just realign yourself. So for me, pretty much every week I'm out ballroom dancing. It's my favorite thing. Gets my body moving. I get to have this feminine expression. I get to follow and I get to listen, and I get to listen to the teacher, and then there's this beautiful fun expression that happens on the dance floor. And so that's for me, that's myself tapping into that feminine embodiment, which is going to increase my intuition. It's going to increase my depth into my feminine energy. And that's where we as entrepreneurs or creatives or even the mothers, like sometimes we just want to like feel expressive, and that's how we tap into it. So we find little ways that we do that. So We did discuss a lot of different ways to manage that. The next one is, I know that this is a little bit long, so I hope you guys are enjoying it, but the next woman we're going to talk about is a woman who is in a transition or in an identity shift. So this can be the mom whose children are leaving the home, and now she's defined herself by taking care of these children, and now like she's got this empty nest. And so her identity is going to change in that. It can even be a mom, or it can even be a woman who gets married. Like your identity shifts from being this beautiful young maiden into like a married woman. And there's a big shift in that. Another shift, and this one is near and dear to me, is our mother passes away. And now, instead of being a daughter and having your mother physically there, now you're a daughter who is moving into like being the maternal face of your family. So that is another identity shift. So we as women have all these situations that can change us. Another example is a woman who maybe is leaving her long-term career. Maybe she's finally retired and now she's experiencing an identity shift of, now I'm not I'm not reporting to work anymore, and I've done it for, since I was 15 years old. Now she's transitioning into this new identity. Or like getting a divorce, or changing your lifestyle. Like there's all different kinds of things. But the key point here is we're stepping into something new, a new identity. And then if you're doing that and you're feeling uncertain or disconnected, I remember when my mom passed away, so I can speak into this. For the longest time, I felt disconnected. I talked to her all the time. She was always there for me to, like, you think I talk a lot now? I would talk to her for like 3 hours every week, like on the phone, and sometimes more than that a week. And so there was a lot of uncertainty about what was I going to be stepping into, a lot of disconnection of what is my life going to look like, a lot of feeling lonely and like missing something. And it took a while to reconnect and become certain about, okay, now that that's happened, now I can move into a different path. So feeling lost, untethered, unsure of what your identity is and or should be, and piecing that all together can kind of be a little confusing, and you feel really lost in that. Some old emotional wounds can resurface here. Fear of the unknown, it can lead into a lot of self-doubt. So even if you have like self-doubt sitting in your being at the time that this transition happens, whether it's known or unknown, you can still have a bit of paralysis or self-doubt moving into that next phase. And I know that I experienced it, and thankfully I have done a lot of emotional work to move and heal through that. But I remember when my father passed away, it took me a lot longer. It was a little wild and crazy. It took me a lot longer. Probably took a good 10 years in order for me to kind of, maybe not that long, maybe 6 years. It took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that my father had passed away, and that I wouldn't have that connection ever again. Like, I don't know very much about him, know very little. And with my mom, I knew a whole bunch. So when that happened, it was like the wounds and the fears and the doubts and all this stuff just comes to the surface, and it's like you have to deal with it. So those are some of the struggles that this woman in a transition or identity shift is going to experience. Now, what she needs is an emotional and energetic reset to help embrace her change with clarity. And So she is going to want to like really put herself on pause. Like I feel like even though COVID was, it's whatever, that pause in the world was almost a healing reset pause to like go through the next steps with clarity. I know that I spoke to a lot of people that experienced that. Other things that she can do are shedding old versions of herself. So there are certain rituals that you can do to shed these old versions of yourself and step into this newer power that you have. So for me, like with losing my mother, it was is shifting. Like I had to shed all of these old ideas that I had of what life was going to be like because I thought my mom was going to be here for, a few more years at least. And so now I had to like shed all those beliefs that I had, which was really difficult, and move into this new matriarchal position and kind of see what that looks like. I didn't know what it was going to look like. The family situation just got really chaotic for a moment. So we're moving into we're stepping into this newer identity, newer power. And then finding safe places, safe spaces to heal, realign, and reclaim confidence. These are all necessary. And for me, I took coaching courses and I showed up and I did the work, and it helped me to heal a lot of these things that I was experiencing. It was very difficult, and I was so dedicated to it. I spent 5 hours a week doing coaching courses and then the work after. Like I put the time in to healing that transition or that identity shift. And so that is our woman, our last woman I'm going to declare is going to be the woman struggling with burnout and emotional numbness. Now, she may not have a family, she may just be in a relationship, but she doesn't have like this high-powered career. Maybe she just has a role, but she's just exhausted and disconnected, and like feeling dull about life. Like she doesn't have a spark that engages her and gets her interested in things. So she's got this, her struggles are lack of motivation and joy. She's feeling like she's just surviving. And I talked about that, like where, I'm sitting there and talking to my therapist. I feel like I'm in survival mode all the time. I don't know what to do, how to get out of this. I just feel like I'm constantly like on the run, or I constantly freeze. And, as much as I loved my therapist, she didn't really address that. We addressed some other bigger issues that were going on at the time, but I feel like that was a big issue to hone in on at the moment. But obviously, I was not as emotionally intelligent at the time to recognize that these things are connected and to focus in on them. But I also had some other bigger, overwhelming things to deal with. So her other struggle is constant anxiety, overstimulation, or emotional shutdown. Like I said, when you're in this, you may not have children, you may not have I didn't have, I didn't have a lot of responsibilities. I didn't have like a big career to boast about. It was, pretty simple, but I was feeling anxiety and I was feeling overstimulated, and like I was constantly on the run and constantly having to fight for some stability. And that all comes from the inner being. Like I was experiencing that, and that's what was projecting out into the world. And then she wants to feel alive and passionate again. Yeah, this is an overlap, but we were talking about wanting to feel and to be beautiful as women. We don't want to not have that spark. We spend a lot of money on, say it funnily, but facial skin routines We spend a lot of money on going to the spa. We spend a lot of money on massages. We spend a lot of money on looking beautiful. We spend a lot of money on makeup. We put money is energy. So we're putting a lot of energy into like looking and feeling a certain way because we want to be connected and we want to have that spark and we want to have this expression of life. We want to dance. There's a beautiful proverb and it says, wisdom was at the beginning of the world, laughing and dancing as the world is being created, sorry. And so that is like wisdom is woman. Like we want to feel alive and sparkly and devoted and excited and feeling this joy and like giving the world something to laugh and smile about. Like people want to hear laughter. It feels good. And so this woman is wanting that. She's desiring to feel alive. And that is feeling alive, is being able to express and dance and sing and whatever your beautiful magic is that you're able to share with the world. You want to put that out there. Art is a huge, like people love art because it's like so beautiful. Maybe you create this beautiful garden and you're planting all these flowers and you're very particular about which flowers you're doing because you're expressing like there's something inside of you that wants to express that. So what this woman needs is she needs that self-healing path that reconnects her to her pleasure and self-expression. And this is not just sexual. This is pleasure in things that bring you happiness. She wants to feel that again. For those of you that know some about astrology, the fifth house is the house of Leo, which is like this really fun and exciting and exhilarating fun and pleasure center of the zodiac. And it's this beautiful self-expression and confidence. And my son is a Leo and I see it in him is he's just confident. And, you know, for all intents and purposes, like a lot of the things that I was worried about him growing up, I was like, oh my gosh, he's not going to be confident. He's not going to be this or that. And like, he just has this really cool confidence. And it comes from this kind of egoic place, but it's so beautiful to see. And I'm like so inspired by that, just watching him be his beautiful self-expression and be this beautiful confidence and have this really solid self-worth naturally, like he's just born with it. Whereas for me, it's because I'm a little bit more empathetic and have a higher level of empathy, it's harder for me to put myself first because I'm so inclined to put others first. And that's just the way I am. And it's part of my challenge and my gifting here on earth. Okay, so we're looking at reconnecting to that self expression, and that's that pleasure center, things that bring you fun, brings things that make you smile and make you happy. We want to be in that spot. The other thing that she is going to need, and all of these women really need too, are nervous system repair and energy restoration. This is part of getting rid of that burnout feeling. I didn't hone in on how important the nervous system was until like the last year. And I remember when I discovered it, or the epiphany came, and people probably discovered it before I did, but the epiphany came and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was flipping a wig. I was like, oh my gosh, the nervous system is so important. I wish somebody would have said something, because here I am. I'm just thinking back like, oh, I remember when I told my therapist about my survival feelings, and you know all of these circumstances that were telling my body was telling myself like, hey, you need to check in on this. Hey, you need to check in on this. Even me, like spraining my ankle, it's like my body is saying, you need to check in on this. You need to slow down and focus on the things that matter. Like we're going to be doing this. So nervous system repair, getting back into that rest and digest is going to be key to rejuvenating the system. And then the energy restoration is really honing in on Where in my body do I feel blocked? And you can meditate and find where those areas are. And then from there, you can kind of unpack and work that out. And then finally, guidance to break free from emotional exhaustion and find fulfillment. So if she's feeling lost and unmotivated, she needs to tune in to who she wants to become and or what is going to give her personal fulfillment. So this is going to be looking in at where is my purpose? Where is my passion? How can I marry these things together so that the expression of who I am is who I want to deliver and be excited about. So, whew, we talked a lot. I hope everyone is still staying with me. It's kind of a long stream, so we'll just keep going because I did want to go over some. I have time, so I will, but I want to go over some techniques to help reduce or eliminate burnout if we can. So, emotional and energy detox techniques are energy clearing rituals. So, there are a few different energy type. So I incorporate energetics into my emotional intelligence teaching, along with nervous system clearing, chakral, like tuning in. I ordered some tuning forks, so I'm going to be adding that biofield restoration into my work as well. But so we can release these emotional stresses through breath work, so somatics, sound healing, which is like tuning forks or singing bowls, or even on YouTube, there's different hertz that you can listen to that kind of focus in on different areas of the body, or movement. So exercising, dancing, anything that brings like hiking, whatever it is. I recommend that if you are not moving, that you at least walk 1 mile a day and just walking. You don't have to do a fast walk. You don't have to do jogging. You don't have to do running. Just walking 1 mile a day will help improve your mood and will help start moving that energy in your body. And that is our goal here, is to get that energy moving. We don't want it blocked. If you're sitting for long hours at work, even breaking up that mile into like quarter mile, you know, go walk a quarter mile for your 15-minute break, and then during lunch, eat your lunch and then go for a walk for, 30 minutes if you have the time, and then doing another 15-minute, or even after work or before work, somehow getting in some steps so that you're moving that energy. If you can add more into it, great. If you like swimming, go do that. If you like going to the gym, do that. If you just can just get out and walk, even if you can't make it the full mile, like work your way up until you can get to that full mile, but keep it consistent and keep your body moving. Journaling for emotional release. So writing in your journal, if that's something that you want to do, writing it by hand, or even like doing something online where you can kind of journal, like here's where I'm at. I know that in my apps somewhere, there's a health app that it kind of tunes into where am I emotionally today. And so you can say, here's how I'm feeling right now. It'll check in with you periodically. It'll just pop up, how are you feeling right now? And so you go in and you're like, oh, I'm feeling motivated, or I'm feeling unmotivated, or I'm feeling whatever it is. And then you can kind of acknowledge what that feeling is. Even if it's good, I still suggest you write about if it's good. And just do a little blurb of like, this is where it's coming from, or I don't know where it's coming from. It could be from this. I'm still thinking about it. And it just kind of gives you this journal of where you're at. And then on the app, it will show you over time, like where your emotions were. It'll kind of it dips in a graph. And then finally, our emotional energetic detox is also giving us our emotional boundaries. So what is an emotional boundary? it's overgiving. So if you're finding yourself being an overgiver and that is causing you burnout, we I would recommend practicing some energetic no's to protect that emotional space that you have. So an energetic no is, you sit there and you're in your recharge time and you feel that anxiety of, oh, I need to get up and go do this. I can't sit down because this needs to happen. Really saying, no, I'm going to take the time I need for myself right now, and I am going to nurture my emotional space instead of continuously overgiving. Because if I don't refill my cup, how am I going to fill others? So, nervous system regulation and relaxation is the other part of this. We talked about it, breath work and somatic healing. It's deep, deep in your belly and then all the way up into your heart space. Like you're just filling your lungs up, and you're doing it and it's activating that rest and digest part of your body. And it's switching from stress mode into relaxation mode. And for me, being the way that I am, like, this is a very stimulating experience. Like the deep breaths, it does make you feel really relaxed. So if you can get your heart rate up, doing some cardio, even just taking maybe a somatics teacher to kind of lead you into this, or you can find something on YouTube or even like guided meditation sometimes. These are all great ways, but the breathwork and somatic healing is going to be fantastic. I did one last week and I was literally buzzing doing it. I'm like, oh my gosh, why haven't I done this before? It really helps to relax. Like, I feel so much more calm this week than I have in a few weeks. And so it's really, really awesome to have that experience. So I really highly recommend breathwork and somatic healing to stimulate that rest and digest vagus nerve that is going to calm you down and relax you. Okay. The next one is grounding practices. So grounding practices could be walking barefoot, it'd be sitting in nature, meditating with a grounding crystal, black tourmaline or hematite, anything that's going to kind of bring you back down. Another thing that I do is the Epsom salt bath is actually a grounding technique. Other grounding techniques is you can go to the beach if you're close to the beach. The beach is going to have a lot of, it's going to expand your energy. There's studies on it. It's going to expand your energy, and so you can do, like I like to do, how would you call it? I do these, I like write things in the sand next to the waves that I want to like get rid of. So there's certain things that I'll write in the waves, like let's just be really basic, stress or something. I try to be as really particular as possible, but I'm just going to leave it like really vague right now. But I'll put stress. Maybe we sit down and we write down the things that cause us stress. A certain debt, car troubles or whatever it is. Like, just be really specific and write them in, and just like imagine as a wave is like washing it out. It's just like cleansing you of that. So that's another grounding practice. If you're not next to a beach, if you're next to like a waterfall, the waterfall has the negative ions just like the beach does. That will kind of give you that feel good feeling and it'll help you ground. So you can sit next to a waterfall. So those are a couple ideas that you can do. And then restorative sleep rituals. So you can try herbal teas or blue light blocking, bedtime yoga, anything that's going to help improve that sleep situation. So the sleep is where that rest and digest really sits. I have a friend and she's so good at sleeping. I'm like, oh, I wish I could sleep as well as you, She's just got a really good She's able to just like hit the pillow and out, and then she can sleep like longer than normal. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I like wake up in the middle of the night. I'm like, oh, I need to do this and that. And like my brain doesn't shut off. And so she's really good at that. And she's got her whole restorative sleep ritual, which is great. But each of us has to kind of figure out what's going to work for us. And maybe we need to have some chamomile tea and, read a book before bed, or maybe we need to listen to a guided meditation or like an affirmation. Like there's different apps that can kind of walk you through those things. So finding a ritual that's going to work for you to help you get the most restorative sleep that you can. I remember when I was having a really tough time sleeping. When I was having a really tough time sleeping, I would listen to thunderstorms and rain, and that would help me sleep throughout the whole night. So that's another idea. So really getting that nervous system regulated and into your body into relaxation mode. We want it to be as relaxed as possible. And I'm like, as I'm practicing all these things, I'm getting so much better at it that I'm, reversing some of the issues that I've caused along the way of being so stressed out. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about feminine energy and emotional reconnection. So, intuitive body movement, this is one of them. So, flow based stretching, dancing, or shaking is another way to release your stuck energy. So, if you feel it stuck in a certain part of your body, just kind of being in this, maybe put on a really primal sounding song and then shaking it out in the privacy of your own room or in your own home. Or heck, if you want to do it on the street corner, then you can do it on the street corner. But just doing some sort of shaking, dancing, or some sort of stretching to get that out of there. That energy like flowing and moving, we want to get that connected. And then as soon as that happens, I feel that when you start to experience the emotions, it becomes you can actually focus on it because now all these blockages are not shadowing your way. Now you can see it. It's less foggy. The next thing that you can do is sacred feminine practices. So womb healing meditations, especially if you're feeling that stuckness in your womb area and or having some issues in that area. There's womb healing meditations that you can do. There's self massage, so you can massage your body and just however you want to do that. There's a lot of guided exercises on how to do that, and or other embodiment exercises. So just find something that resonates with you that you know that you will follow through with and continue doing that. So I find that after my bath, I like to. So I got turned on to Aquaphor, which I was only able to get the baby version of it, but I feel like it's less crazy as the normal version of it because it feels a little bit lighter. But I'll massage that into my skin after my bath, and it makes me feel really hydrated and rejuvenated, kind of like return some of the moisture back into my body. Your skin is your biggest organ, so take care of it. But that's like a self massage practice that after my bath that I do, and it's a part of my self care ritual. Excuse me. And then slow living and pleasure activation. So as we're tuning into that feminine energy, we want to prioritize the joy and the creativity that we love about ourselves. And we want to find the things that are pleasurable to us. So if reading is one, you can go. One thing that I like to do is I like to get dressed up, I'll go to a coffee shop, and then I'll kind of casually work on my projects that I have and have a cup of tea or a chai or a coffee, like whatever feels good at the moment. whatever's speaking to me, and I'll just work on my creative things. And so that is, and I'll do it casually. It's not, I don't have a time limit on it. I'm not like, oh, I can only be here for 45 minutes and then I got to go. I'm going to give myself a little bit of time. Like, I have up to 3 hours that I can spend, or I have up to an hour that I can spend here. And I'm going to be working on this because it's going to make me happy and it's going to make others happy. So we're looking at those activities that are going to bring us pleasure and to really activate in our minds the feminine energy that we have in ourselves. This is not limited to females. Like, males can do this as well, but we're focusing on women today, and we're focusing on reconnecting our emotional energy, because where the women go, the men follow. They want to be around joyful, creative, and fun-loving, pleasure-filled women's. All right, and then finally, our last area of work, sorry, techniques that we're going to talk about is practical burnout recovery strategies. So, in burnout, in the mental exhaustion, the physical exhaustion, and that emotional exhaustion that we're feeling throughout our day, we are like, every moment is like filled with something. And for us to kind of get through some recovery strategies, we have to like fill the space with we needed something to do nothing. So schedule white space daily. Schedule 15 minutes where you just do nothing. Like, guys are really good at this, I hear. They're really good at like sitting there and thinking about nothing. They look like they're pondering something, and you see reels about it. You cannot, don't front. You've seen the reels about this where the guys are like just standing and looking out the window and contemplating, like, they look like they're contemplating something, but maybe they're not. They're just sitting there and just like not thinking about anything. So let's take a page from that book and schedule a little bit of time to think about just nothing. It could start with 10 minutes and then you kind of build up to however much you need. It's just a time where you can reset your mind. You're just like, I'm not going to think about anything. If you think about something, you just jot it down. Okay, I'm not going to think about it. Just jot it down. We talked about this in our feminine flow techniques, is that if you're dedicating, let's say you dedicate an hour to yourself every day, you're like, I have to have 1 hour out of my whole day to do something for myself, and this is my time slot. And then if something, like, from the time that starts, if something interferes with that, you just like write it down. I'm not going to deal with this right now. I'll come back to it. I'm just going to focus on the things that I'm doing. And or maybe you start a huge like project. Maybe you like to put puzzles together, and this is your time where you're like, I'm not even going to think about anything. I'm just going to focus on putting this puzzle together. Schedule that time, just 15 minutes, 30 minutes, however long you can, put it in your day, and just not think about anything. Nothing in there. Don't let this be your recovery, your recharge time, but it is and it isn't. Just plot it out every now and again. I find that in burnout, I tend to just work through all of my breaks, lunch break, regular breaks, and that's all I do. So let's take that time to really sit and not think about something. Prioritize deep rest over fake productivity. So replace overworking with intentional recovery practices. And I find that if I start my day, I'm a lot more productive than if I'm like 6 hours into the day. So usually if I start my work day at 7, I can work up until like 1 or 2, but anything after that is kind of like I'm just overworking to overwork. I'm not going to get as much work, not as productive during those times as I am in the first thing in the morning. And I know that about myself. So you might operate in a different way, but do all of your productive stuff at your productive times during the day. And then if there's a stopping point, just stop. Just stop and leave it to tomorrow. It's not going to, unless there's like a huge time limit, and you've procrastinated, like let's obviously look at the procrastination, but really start to focus, to line up your day to focus on the times that you're most creative. Now, some people, I'm a early riser. I like to wake up earlier. So my more productive times are in the morning. Some people, they're, what's it called? Chronos. There's a word for it. It's like chronos. I think that means time. Chrono. Chronology. There's like a I'll have to find it, but there's a test you can do, like a quiz that you can take to see and determine what kind of animal you are. So there's like bear who likes to wake up early in the morning. There's like a dolphin person, I think a lion person, and they do well. So some people do well when they start their day at 9 or 10, and they work from 9 or 10 until like 3 to 4, and that is like their time because that's when their mind is most efficient at doing the productive things. For me, I like to wake up early. Some people like to wake up earlier than I do. I like to, I actually like to wake up at 5 a.m. I have the most energy, and so usually I'll find myself at work at 7. So I take the time from 5 to 5:30. That's when my body normally wakes up. So I'm listening to my circadian rhythm. Likes to wake up at that time. Got a lot of energy. Get ready for the day. Head into work. Get there around 6:37, and then I'm like boom, 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 productive until, usually about 1 or 2, and then from at 1 or 2, I'm like, okay, now it's the time I need to take a break, and then go and focus on doing things. And anything after that time, it's it's not it's not very productive. It's overworking. So it doesn't make sense for me to blast through working if that is when my fake productivity is happening. So I know that about myself. I know how much time when my productivity time is, and so instead of just overburdening myself with 8 hours of work, I'm gonna work from 7 a.m. until like 1 or 2. So what's that? 7, 5, 6, 7 hours that I'm fairly productive, that I can like power through and get 8 hours or more of work done in that period of time. Like, I've mastered that. Okay, so recognizing what your practices are and working around that schedule. Our last one is detox from overstimulation. So reducing social media, screen time, or external noise, and creating more mental spaciousness. So these can be journaling. It could be taking a walk, which is, what I recommended, at least a mile a day. Anything that can get that moving, that's going to help you sleep better. Like focusing less on the social media and more on these other activities that are going to help bring you more into your feminine embodiment, more into your relaxation, more into a rested central nervous system and a rested body, that is going to help you to overall be a lot more healthy. So I don't know. I feel like we did almost 2 hours. Well, I can't even say almost, because we did 2 hours of emotional, mental, and physical burnout. And I hope that this has landed my little reflective reflect on how you're feeling. Take a second to log how you're feeling at this moment. Just popped up. So, just final thoughts on this topic because it is such a huge topic and I see it all the time, and I want this to be as informative as possible, and I hope it does land for many of you and you got something out of it. But burnout it's not just from doing too much, okay? It's from doing things out of alignment with who you are. So it's out of alignment with your essence. It's out of alignment with your energy. You're disconnected from your joy, your passion, your purpose, and you're overgiving and not having that energetic boundary. And we want you to have a beautiful, strong, energetic boundary. We want shiny, beautiful mermaids running around the world and, just sharing their love and compassion because we need that. We need that in our society, in our communities, and we want to have that connection. And if the women are feeling disconnected, we're all connected, okay? We're all a web of connected people. We get synchronicities and we, we're very connected energetically with everyone. So when one is down, all are all are down. Like we need to empower ourselves and lift ourselves up out of this if we're experiencing that, and or recognize it in others. So if you're recognizing this in yourself and you think you need help, I have a coaching course. It's called the Mystical Energy Spa. And so we go through all of these things. We exfoliate, we soak our energy, and then we work on clearing that. I do personalized courses for you, or personalized plans so that you guys are engaged with what's going to land for you so that you get the best results. So if you are interested in that, please email me or contact me on any medias. You can also email me at amelie@soulesticintelligence.com, and that is my main business page to get a hold of me if you want to email. And I can schedule a time with you that we can talk about what your pain points are, where you want to be, and get you moving through this. Because if you're in extreme burnout, chronic burnout, you're likely not going to be able to see very far. And we're working on getting you clarity because that's where you want to be. You want to be clear and in having these beautiful visions and beauty and sharing that with everybody. So I hope you guys have a good day. I am going to take a break and then finish my work day. I love you guys. Thank you so much. And we will be on next week talking about imposter syndrome. So I will see you guys next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.